Thanks for that report, Ben. Joining me now is veteran journalist Ray Suarez. He's also co-host of the weekly radio program World Affairs and New York Now. Ray, always great to see you. About that White House event, some critics have invoked the Hatch Act, suggesting the president might have violated it when he veered off into campaign mode. Your thoughts?
This kind of thing, John, comes up any time an incumbent runs for re-election. You're the president all the time. So anything that you do that might be tinged with politics in an election year, the accusation is going to come that this was a political event. Of course, the president didn't help himself in this regard by talking as much about Joe Biden as about the reputed topic of the briefing. He made big news on China, signing an executive order taking away Hong Kong's special status in American trade law, and by signing a new bill that brings in all kinds of sanctions against Chinese banks and individuals. The president stepped on his own event by calling the former vice president bizarre and saying his entire career was a gift to the Chinese Communist Party. This is one of those unusual press events where both campaigns, both the Trump campaign and the Biden campaign, may cut excerpts to make commercials.
Ray, you know, in the early days of his presidency and as a candidate in 2016, some of the president's closest advisors advocated just letting Trump be Trump. It seems like the Biden campaign has adopted the same philosophy and, in a way, avoided missteps and gaffes. At what point will Joe Biden have to become more engaged on the campaign trail?
Well, later in the year, he'll have to be out there, certainly once he's officially the Democratic nominee, and as more places become safer to travel to. There's an old cliche in politics: don't interrupt your opponent while he's in the middle of making a mistake. Joe Biden, so far, has stepped back and allowed the president to make his own problems on the re-election trail. Whether he's present enough himself, if you're leading in the polls and you've got enough people listening to you when you do speak, as he did with the address yesterday on energy and infrastructure building, why go out there and be high profile on the campaign trail until you have to?
We've only got about a minute left, Ray. Starting today, hospitals must send their coronavirus data to the Trump administration instead of the CDC. What's the motivation there, and what effect will that end up having?
It's hard to know what effect it'll end up having. I'm sure the White House would describe it one way, the CDC another. When there's been a clearinghouse for American disease-related information that's worked and worked reliably for decades, you have to wonder why a White House that's complained about the data earlier on in the pandemic, complained that you'd have fewer cases if they weren't doing such a great job with testing, is worried about the data that's being sent to the CDC. There's never been complaints about the CDC being an unreliable repository for infectious disease data. This is something that bears watching, and both on the medical beat and on the political beat, you're going to have to keep a close eye on the White House.
All right, Ray Suarez, thank you so much for your time and your insights.